You have been a comic book writer, a screenplay writer, a producer, and a director. Honestly, which part attracts you more, and which part of these feels more creative for you?
I genuinely enjoy wearing different hats. Sometimes it's great to just retreat. I do a lot of my writing in Wyoming, a place up in the mountains by myself. It's kind of like Misery, but without the crazy woman. And so it's fun sometimes to get very internal, but my wife hates being around me when I'm like that because I'm just very, very surly. But then it's fun to come out and direct and be very social and work with 3, 4, 500 people. I like going back and forth. I like working comic books. Honestly, I can't really choose. It's great. It's great to be able to go back and forth because whenever I get sick of writing, I can go direct, and whenever I get sick of directing, in the case of Da Vinci, it rained a lot. We had to wear a lot
testing.
a lot of rain gear. We had the most rain in recorded history in Wales. There were floods, all sorts of things. So it was nice to come home and dry out in California for a while.
Which are the greater risks when working on a historical or period project?
Well, two. I mean, when you're working with a historical project, I mean, you run the risk of angering the historians, obviously. But this is not a historical docudrama. I've said that from the beginning. I've said it's a historical fantasy. We're well aware of history, and when we choose to veer away from something, we know why. But I've said from the very beginning, it's a kind of graphic novel approach. And then when you have a sacred cow like Leonardo da Vinci, who's one of the most revered figures in history, you also run the risk of angering people because, like Batman and Superman, people feel very proprietary over a figure like that. Everyone thinks of Da Vinci as this old man with a beard. He's like Merlin, from Camelot. But the fact of the matter is, in his lifetime, he was meant to be a good-looking man. He was meant to be very funny. He was a vegetarian. He was a swordsman. He was a horse rider. He was all of these things. He really was kind of more like that. And the other reason is, yes, we run the risk of being controversial with historians, but I feel like I'm on the right track because when we started, my son did not care about Leonardo da Vinci at all. Why are you making this show about this old man, Dad? And then once he started to see some of the pieces and see that he invented the machine gun and the tank and the submarine, then he said, oh, he's cool. He's like Batman. And that's why we're doing it, so that the other generations will think he's cool. You have to keep rewriting history.
It's not that obvious from the first episode of Da Vinci's Demons, but is there any intention to approach Da Vinci as a 15th century superhero, or even some kind of a MacGyver kind of Renaissance hero?
It feels like the ultimate
It feels
superhero.
like
Yeah.
the MacGyver of the Renaissance.
There are aspects of that in the show. There are aspects of Sherlock Holmes, aspects of Indiana Jones, aspects of... Someone said it was sort of if they fused Sherlock Holmes with the Name of the Rose, that's got aspects of that as well. I mean, he's a tricky character. He's a bit of an investigator, a bit of an adventurer, and he definitely is... quite a few times has to get out of difficult situations by coming up with some tricky machine or combination of liquids, in order to escape. So
What's wonderful is that his superpower is his mind.
yes, his imagination.
It's
So who are you in Da Vinci's Demons?
She plays Da Vinci.
the ultimate genius. I play Clarice Orsini, who is the wife of the legendary Lorenzo Medici. She's like a parallel to a Jackie O. She's the leader, the wife of the leader of Florence. He's confidant, he's ally, his biggest fan in a sense, and yet within her own right, she's a wonderful politician, a businesswoman, a forward-thinking, ambitious, intelligent woman.
Also, part of the series first season is there's this war is kind of brewing between Rome and Florence. Florence does not have its own standing army, and Leonardo creates these war machines, and he creates this kind of alliance with Lorenzo de' Medici, and Lorenzo's wife Clarice. Because Leonardo is a very controversial figure, she's sort of like, "Are you sure you want to get in bed with this figure?" I mean,
there's a goal.
He's dangerous.
There's a goal, and there's a clarity within defending Florence, and yet we decide to appoint this very free-thinking,
very mercurial, very unpredictable
man.
person that we hope will help us defend Florence, and it's a controversial decision.
The casting of Da Vinci's Demons is mainly British. Why do you think that the Americans are so fascinated with British actors?
Gosh, right now I feel like it's a bit of a golden time for British actors, creators, writers.
We cast a British Batman, a British Superman.
Yeah, we're so fortunate that we have such a wonderful kind of training in the UK, often very theatre-based, often very collaborative, and it gives us this wonderful skill to be able to play with text and language. And what's extraordinary is that you go to the US and they really respect that training. It's not kind of an X Factor training of when's my moment. Am I a star right now? It's kind of very much a goal orientated for the whole piece, for the whole team. And I think when you guys, the creative team, decided to create the show in Swansea, what was wonderful was the opportunities that they then had casting wise.
And they're easier to push around. No. British actors are fun to work with. They're very easy to work with.
During the 40s and the 50s, television has been the greatest enemy of cinema, especially in the States. Do you feel that we're back on these days? Are we living some kind of a deja vu?
I think right now, I mean, look, I come from cinema first, but I think we are really in a golden age of television, particularly cable television, where if a lot of great filmmakers are migrating to television. Scorsese and Sam Mendes, and I think that there's a reason for that, because some of the most challenging work now is being done on television. I think it's a very exciting time to be involved in television.
Do you believe that it hurts the movie business, though?
Well,
I think
not necessarily.
No, I think the ability to cross genres has just become easier.
Yeah.
I think people go where great work is, and I think it comes down to the piece and the script as a whole, whether it's Sam Mendes directing a theatre production, whether it's him then directing the next Bond movie.
I'll also tell you that in Hollywood, where I'm from, it used to be in film that there was a kind of prejudice against, if you were a writer or a director working in television, they didn't want you working in film. But that's not the case anymore. A lot of the director of the new Thor film was one of the directors of Game of Thrones, and that would not have happened 10 years ago. But now things like that are happening.